We are going to talk about Khalil Gibran, and this is Song of Man 25. This is a good example of Gibran's style and how he can either make you cry tears of laughter or tears of sorrow at the same time. This is tears of sorrow, but again, it's somewhat of a bittersweet poem. There's beauty in it, but there's also a cold reality to it and a cold sort of acceptance that we must come to. I was here from the moment of the beginning, and here I am still, and I shall remain here until the end of the world, for there is no ending to my stricken being. I roamed the infinite sky and soared to the ideal world and floated through the firmament, but here I am, prisoner of measurement. I heard the teachings of Confucius, I listened to the Brahma's wisdom. I sat by Buddha under the tree of knowledge. Yet here I am, existing with ignorance and heresy. I was on Sinai when Jehovah approached Moses. I saw the Nazarenes' miracle at the Jordan. I was in Medina when Muhammad visited. Yeah, I am here, prisoner of bewilderment. Then I witnessed the might of Babylon. I learned the glory of Egypt. I viewed the wearing greatness of Rome. Yet my earlier teachings showed the weakness and sorrow of those achievements. I conversed with the magicians of Iandor. I hope that's how you say it. I debated with the priests of Assyria. I gleaned depth from the prophets of Palestine. Yet I am still seeking truth. I gathered wisdom from quiet India. I probed the antiquity of Arabia. I heard all that can be heard, yet my heart is deaf and blind. I suffered at the hands of despotic rulers. I suffered slavery under insane invaders. I suffered hunger imposed by tyranny. Yet I possess some inner power with which I struggle to great each day. My mind is filled, but my heart is empty. My body is old, but my heart is an infant. Perhaps in youth my heart will grow, but I pray to grow old and reach the moment of my return to God. Only then will my heart fill. I was here from the moment of the beginning, and I am here still, and I shall remain here until the end of, this might be this is probably a of world, for there is no ending to my grief-stricken being. This is probably an error. I don't. Maybe it's just an error in translation. I don't know because I know Japan would write in different languages, so maybe that's just a typo or something. But I feel like the point of this poem is pretty clear: is that he's talking about mankind as a whole when he says, "I was here." He's speaking about all of humanity all at once, and he then shifts to why are we still so ignorant? Why are we still so dumb? Why do we still fall victim to the whims of primitive man, the violence, the anger, the rage, the retribution that so many of us feel? And we were able to endure so many things, but we never learned our lesson. Think of all the bad rulers, think of all the revolutions, think of all the teachings of the great religions or the teachings of the great philosophers or even the wisdom gained through a great life well lived. And yet we still feel so empty. We still feel so naive. We still fall victim to the same traps over and over and over again. And I think it's super fascinating because Gibran seems somewhat hopeless in this, but he also seems somewhat aspirational because in this point, where is it? Pray to grow old and reach the moment of my return to God, and only then will my heart fill. And to him, it seems like we'll never learn this lesson. We'll never learn this lesson in this world. We'll always be stuck. We'll always fall victim to our shortcomings, regardless of the wisdom before us. We really won't ever learn until we are finally accepted into the kingdom of heaven, I guess we could say. There's a million ways to say what I'm trying to say, but I'm just going to go with that. But yeah, a fascinating poem. And, we can go into the lines in greater detail. And interesting enough, we'll start with this. I was here from the moment of the beginning, and I'm here still. Again, I was here from the moment of the beginning, and I'm here still. So he's repeating this first sort of stanza just so that we know that there's no end to the cycle, that this cycle is the beginning and the end, that there is no such thing as the end of the movie, that it just continues going. There's this interesting way to tell a story that I think Frank Herbert does it probably the best in Dune, where the story is ever going, like regardless of what Paul Atreides or Leto Atreides do, the same cycle occurs. The same transformation of Dune into a paradise back into a desert occurs, and these same sort of cycles happen, and we are just taking part in one grand cycle. And this is really reminiscent of Emerson's idea of the oversoul, or somewhat Spinoza's idea of God, and sort of the process of things changing, growing, dying, being reborn as something new, and we're just taking our time. I roamed the infinite sky and soared in the ideal world and floated through the firmament, but I am here a prisoner of measurement. And again, this is speaking to our limitedness as well as our infiniteness. Think of the quote in Luke, "The kingdom of heaven is within you." That sort of idea of things is that humanity has the capability of greatness, has the capability to, you know, and have God act through us, and yet at the same time we're capable of such senseless nature, such senseless violence. I heard the teachings of Confucius. I listened to Brahma's wisdom. I sat my Buddha under the tree of knowledge, yet I'm here existing with ignorance and heresy. Think of all the people that have learned from the greatest of masters, and yet we seemingly can't seem to make sense of what has happened. We can't make sense of this wisdom, and we can't use it for our betterment. And yet, great things have been said and great things have been done, and yet we can't learn from them. And it's just, you know, uh, I think Gurdjieff has this sort of idea of that, great masters will come throughout this world, but yet they'll be somewhat disregarded by the world, and somebody will come anew and say the exact same thing and become popular for a while, but then eventually return to dust, and eventually their message will all but disappear. And it's just a cycle of these prophets or enlightened people or wise guru. I don't even know a good word to say this, but there's this just endless cycle of people coming to try to help, and how much is really done and how much is this really just a natural process of things. I was on Sinai when Jehovah approached Moses. I saw the Nazarene's miracle at the Jordan. I was in Medina when Muhammad visited, yet I'm here, prisoner of bewilderment. He's talking about the Abrahamic religions here. He basically says humanity was witness to the three Abrahamic religions, and yet none of them have really, really stuck. None of them have really made the world a better place. It seems that the world is worse off than it really ever was, and yet we've had these eternal lessons given down to us. Then I witnessed the might of Babylon. I learned the glory of Egypt. I viewed the war and greatness of Rome, yet my earlier teachings showed weakness and sorrow of those achievements. So again, these are the earlier teachings, the teachings of. Okay, so he's going through the. I didn't realize when he started originally, but it's starting with the earliest sort of enlightened sort of masters, and he's going to the later ones. Um, think Confucius, the Brahmas, Buddha, they were all, I don't know the exact time period, but they were way before um, these other religions, or even around the same time. And it gets really funny and fuzzy when you start to get into the sort of history of this stuff. But he's sort of progressing through time, and then he's talking about the age of empires and how did we really progress as humans, or did we fall victim to the worldly sense of things? Like, the greatness of Rome was they had the greatest military at the time, and they were able to basically adopt the civilization of the people around them so that they could assimilate into the Roman Empire and make it a melting pot and take the best elements and then apply that to society as a whole. But it almost seems like we're somewhat evolving in this age. I conversed with the magicians of Eindor. I debated with the priests of Assyria. I gleaned the depths from the prophets of Palestine. Yet I'm still seeking the truth. I gathered wisdom from quiet India. I probed antiquity of Arabia. I heard all that can be heard, yet my heart is deaf and blind. And then there's this somewhat eternal thing that you'll really discover in something that's really profound, is that no matter how much you study at a certain point, if you don't apply it and if you don't actually learn it for yourself, then you won't ever understand it. It's like reading a book and then trying to fix an engine. The person that learns to fix an engine with their hands first then can read that book and understand it at a deeper level, but vice versa is not the same. You can't read it and understand it at the same level as experiencing certain things. And that is especially true when it comes to matters of the heart. That's especially true when it comes to matters of the depth of human experience and spiritual experience. My mind is filled, but my heart is empty. My body is old, but my heart is an infant. My body is old, but my heart is an infant. Think of the human race, about how many years it's been going on, and yet people still know so little about their own emotions. People still are so controlled by their emotions, and controlled by their emotions for the worst. If you're divinely inspired with love, then that's a great thing. Think of the romantic sort of sentiments of Shakespeare. That's beautiful. But if you are controlled by your lower emotions, by hatred, by anger, then we're subject to war. We're subject to things that are not very very good. Perhaps in youth my heart will grow, but I pray to grow old and reach the moment of my return to God. Only then will my heart fill. And really, Gibran gives us the one layer of hope in this, is that we don't need anything in this world. We need to return to God. And if we can return to God, then we can have everything that we are looking for. I was here from the moment of the beginning, and I am here still, and I shall remain here until the end of the world, for there is no ending to my grief-stricken being. And he's repeating this sentiment because what he's saying is there's an underlying purpose to this, is that regardless of what you do in this world, you have to seek God, regardless of the experience that you're looking for, regardless of the fame and accolades and everything. None of that means anything because it will all decay. The only thing that is infinite is your soul. The only thing that is infinite is your heart. And so few number of people actually seek out the spirit, seek out the heart, and seek out the soul of what is actually important in this world. And you could look at it on his face and it seems like depressing because the language kind of is, but at the same time, he's kind of giving you a second option. He's kind of giving you a way out of the cycle and a way out of this sort of suffering of this world. And there's a certain idea that's repeated throughout antiquity. It's you know, you really need suffering for life to have any meaning, and without suffering, human beings really wouldn't do anything. And it's a really important aspect of your life because for you to suffer, that's you growing. Because without suffering, you're not going to become better. You're not going to change your ways. If everything was handed to you, then you would continue to be a spoiled brat. But because you're pushed down, because you get a kick in your ass, that's really the signs of your evolution, and that's the first steps of you growing. So, with that said, this is Son of Man 25 by Khalil Gibran, and we will continue to go through poems. I had a whole lot of fun doing this. Peace out. I'll catch you guys in the next one.